Thanks for joining us on Coast to Coast Pest Talk.
All right,
It's all on you, man.
Now our guest is out of the podcast, so we can say all the bad things about him, right?
He can still hear everything we're saying. You can if you want, though.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Coast Pest Talk. I'm your host Gabe with Pest Patrol, joined here by Andy Sinevsky with Permatech Pest Management, as always. And we've got an awesome host, a great episode planned for today. Our host for today's episode, or our guest for today's episode, comes from Arizona. And he is none other than Wyatt Chambers. If you haven't seen him on LinkedIn or other socials with the little trophy emoji in his bio, and Wyatt runs Swarm Pest Control Marketing, along with a slew of other companies, including Pest Friends, a pest management company, I believe based in Arizona as well, and a smattering of other companies he's part of. So quite the serial entrepreneur, and we're looking forward to bringing him on and having a good conversation.
Yeah. Now, you said if you haven't seen him on social media, you probably haven't been on social media. You probably have. If you have been on social media, your eyes were closed if you haven't seen him. So yeah, he gets around. And I didn't know he's in Arizona. So that's very cool. All right, let's bring him in and he can speak for himself now. Wyatt, welcome, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
So tell us about Swarm Pest Control Marketing. Like, what is this about? How did you find your way into that?
Okay, that's a good question. I think it was kind of, I won't say by accident, but I've been in a bunch of different peer groups, okay, over the last, I would say, 5-6 years. And as I was in those groups, it was building up to Swarm is really what it was. Last year, I was in Cancun, Mexico, part of a peer group. And I said, man, I really like being a part of something like this, something bigger than I am, something where there's real peer-to-peer action going on, where there's an abundance mindset. What happens typically is when you're in a specific geography, you're not sharing trade secrets with somebody you're competing with. So it creates this fear-based marketing. It's like, man, we're all fighting for customers. And so along that pathway, one of the biggest things that you can do with other peers, especially CEOs or people that are running the organization, is be able to share these stories, because a lot of these things you can't share with your employees. You're supposed to generate security for them. So when I was in Mexico last year, I'm like, you know what, gosh darn, I'm going to start a mastermind group. We're going to do it. And so Swarm Mastermind was an idea. And then we went to Pest World with Swarm Towers, what I call it, and started talking to people about that component. Turns out that more people were interested in the mastermind than the actual marketing. Go figure.
Wow. So you said you were in peer groups. Was that in pest control peer groups, or what style?
No,
Yeah. Okay.
no. I was I'm in there's a big group of CEOs across the nation called Vistage. Some of your top CEOs on the planet. And I've been a part of a group that does about $500 million in revenue. And I'm able, the small guy, get in there and share my problems, and we get to work on them. Test your humility when you're sitting there with somebody that's doing 100 million a year, or somebody that's doing, $1 million a year. And we all have some value that we bring to the table. Doesn't matter how big you are. We all have the same kind of issues. And 10 times out of 10, somebody's already dealt with it. So in Vistage, which is a beautiful group to be a part of, it's a pay to play kind of a thing. I like that. It's not everybody can fit in there or get in there, but you have to qualify. And so when I like that group, and that one I'm still in, I just got my 5-year award of being in that group. Then I was in some other ones as well. One was in actual a digital marketing group, top 1%ers in the country. And I was like, what is everybody else doing in the country? Because I'm like this, again, fear-based mindset, where I'm not going to share that knowledge and information because they might use it and go get my clients, right? So it's nice to be in the top 1% in digital marketing agencies in the country. So
Yeah,
2 groups I'm in. Yeah, go ahead.
Were you always specialized into a pest control niche, or was it generalized marketing? Like,
No, I've been generalist for 17 years, and I started off by marketing my accountant. I gave him a free website, and he gave me some accounting, and off the races we went. And somewhere along the line, I got some I would say courage, like Gabe did, like every entrepreneur does, and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And we don't know what we're in for until we get out there and start doing it. And that's what happened. Yeah.
Why'd you pick pest control?
Okay, yeah, that's a fun story. So I was in a group here in Tucson of just business owners that actually started me down this whole path probably about 7 years ago. And one of the guys in this group was Scott Nolan. And at the time, he was running Truly Nolan. He ran it for
Yep.
28 years. So Scott, mad scientist, we're doing our hike. He invited me to go hike up a canyon, with a beautiful canyon, and he starts talking about how awesome pest control is. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And he's talking about pest control, and he's like, hey, how about joining the club, and being a part of it? And I'm like, oh, okay, it sounds great. Wouldn't mind partnering with you. I'm just this tiny little digital marketing guy, but sure, what can I do? And so turns out that they wanted me to go ahead and do the digital marketing for a new company that we started 5 years. Well, it's coming up on 5 years, called Pest Friends. And that was interesting because as soon as we launched that thing, COVID hit, and all
Oh
of the
no.
traditional marketing. Yeah, I had to get out my checkbook. This was not a free get on board and put some sweat equity. This was, hey, get out your checkbook. I was an investor, but also a worker in that business. And as soon as we wrote the checks and got the trucks rolling, COVID hit. So all the door knocking and doing the typical stuff that people do in pest control, yeah, that wasn't happening.
Mm.
So a little bit of pressure on me to perform in the digital marketing space. And yeah, that was fun. A lot of learning went on.
Wow. Wow. And you offer this to like anybody? Like, is it anybody across the country? Is it just people in Arizona? I know Gabe. I think you're doing some work with them. So obviously, geographically, you're not limited.
Yeah, no, I think what we're doing is we don't want to compete with ourselves, right? So this is my first grab for a national based outreach, which we've been doing and had some success early on, and we're starting to stack what I would say people in cities that want to come on board. What was interesting to me is we're picking up companies that have more than one brand. So a lot of these companies are doing roll ups where they own multiple brands. We have one mastermind member. He has like 3 different brands.
Hmm.
Doesn't really matter. It does change when you're trying to market more than one geography as opposed to just one. Sometimes you have cross-border stuff like what Gabe has going on with 2 states. So I would say every pest control marketing, you need the same kinds of services. Everybody has their own unique challenges. For example, I was on the phone with a guy that does wildlife, and I said, "How far do you go?" And he goes, 85 miles. And like that wouldn't work in your typical pest control route. You get killed if you had 85 miles. So, but his jobs are 4,000, 5,000, 10,000. So yeah, he'll travel 85 miles to go, do some of the things that he does. It makes sense for him.
Yeah.
But different techniques will take place for sure.
How big is your typical company that you work with?
When I first started targeting, at least the mastermind, we wanted to work with people that were doing $1 million or more. Few exceptions. Gabe was an awesome exception because of what he was doing on social and the impact he's making, like with this podcast and how much passion and drive he has. We set that dollar amount because and I was telling Gabe this that I put my life and soul into companies that were startups and they just didn't know how to run business. And I started becoming a business coach. I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. That's not what I do. I just turned 50. At some point I'd like to retire, and not that I don't like helping startups, but you can only do so much. So in this space, in this vision, the vision was, hey, we're going to take 30 companies to 200 million in 2025 combined revenue, and we're going to beat the national growth rates. I'd love to just double it, at least double those growth rates for the ones that we're working with.
Yeah. So you're saying achieve an organic growth rate of those companies you're working with that's twice what the industry's growing at. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Whatever
Yep.
the industry rate is for that
Right.
year, we're gonna beat that, right? So, I mean, if we looked at the trajectory with what Gabe's doing, hey, I'm not gonna be happy unless we beat that by 2, right?
Right.
And so every other player on that team, same thing. Now, Some of them, it might be a revenue increase. Some of them, you have to step backwards to step forward. So it's not always revenue. It might just be growth.
Mm.
Is, hey, I gotta invest here. I gotta change this. One of the mastermind members is a COO. He was the senior executive vice president of Truly Nolan. And man, these mastermind members have access to some firepower. I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of stuff and value that's practical. You could take it tomorrow and start using it tomorrow, as opposed to let's talk theory and let's spend 6 months learning a system. These are things that we could put into play right away.
Yeah, yeah. So on the small side, let's say you have those guys that are stuck in that 200,000 a year. One or two guys. What advice do you give them? I mean, like, obviously this isn't probably an option for them right now. So how do they grow out of that?
Usually I give them about an hour of my time. The recent one wasn't even a pest control guy. It was Gabe's brother-in-law.
Hmm.
He
Yep.
called and he's like, "Hey man, what are you doing, Gabe? It's working." I said, "Look, let's just talk. Let's see what's going on." And we spent an hour. And man, he's taking notes. I'm telling you, he's picking up stuff. And I'm like, that is the reward. I get joy from that. It's part of just my principles and how I run my life. Is just, you give, you give, you give, and it always comes back, right? In this scenario, I could tell he was really picking up on it. I can't wait to check in on him in 6 months. If he does even 10% of what we talked about, it's going to move the needle for him.
What would
Yeah.
you say with that, Wyatt? Practical ways. Obviously, those smaller companies need to be marketing, right? I mean, they really need to be marketing so they can keep growing. And if they want to grow, say they're at that 250, 350K mark, maybe they have a technician. What are some, like, where do they market? Where should they invest their time that's going to actually move that needle so that they could eventually be a $1.5 million company and talk with you, right?
Yeah. They need to do what it takes to get more sales, right? And so if they put money into marketing, they better be sure that they can track it. Let's just say they're all in on Google LSA ads or local service ads. If they put aside that money, are they getting the return? They should look at every single local service ad coming through. If they spent $50 in some parts of the country, it's 80. Did they get the return on investment? And beyond just that ticket, especially if it's reoccurring, if they get a reoccurring ticket, then that's an easy decision. Keep putting in more in there. What's hard with the smaller guys, especially with the local service ads, is they're competing with big guys. And there's like an SEO pecking order in that. So that's one thing I had to contend with Pest Friends is I couldn't compete with Terminex. I couldn't compete with Truly Nolan, whose home base was here in Tucson. So LSA's ads were out. Did I sign up for them? Was I there? Yeah. Now, what would you do after that? The biggest thing that you can do is make sure that you're getting reviews every day and telling that story. Why? Because that was exactly what I did with Pest Friends. Doesn't cost a thing other than the effort to get them. And what happened is we started dominating on the map pack, specifically in the areas that we wanted to, because that's where we were. We were making sure that we were getting that route packing in areas where there's where our clients are. Everybody talks about route density. Well, that's great when everything's perfect. You're just going to take what you can get when you first start.
Yeah.
But as you start building that density, maybe you start taking pieces of that route and not taking it anymore. It may doesn't make sense to drive 40 minutes to go to handle that snake job or that rat job or whatever. You're going to stay closer to where you can build a real route, look at the data, and see the profit coming in there. So reviews is number one. That's under the pillar of reputation. Now, some people don't think that's marketing. Yes, it is. Who is your best salesman? Your customer. I was telling Gabe, first thing I did is I was reading Gabe's reviews. This is who I want to work with. That's one of my pre-qualifiers is I look at the reputation. If that pest control owner doesn't care about their reputation, they're not going to care about marketing too much. They're not in tune with what's going on. So that's the first free thing you can do. And as soon as you can pay for some automation to make sure that those reviews are happening, A good tool out there that we use in our mastermind group is Applause. Applause is a fantastic tool. Now that only makes sense if you got a couple guys, right? Because you're gamifying getting those reviews. We used 5 years ago Podium. Podium was great because as soon as the job was done, we'd text the client and say, "Hey, how'd we do? How are things going? Anything less than 5-star service, we're going to come right back." And you had to be like a hockey player, man, guy, do that goaltending stuff because when somebody says a bad thing and it stays out there, we know how that feels. It's going to cost you. Yeah.
So tell us, not to shift gears a little bit, but tell us a little bit about these masterminds. What is this? How is it the same or different than something like a Vistage or a peer group or whatever? I mean, it is a peer group, but what are you guys doing with that?
When you're in Vistage, it's a full day. Our pest control owners, they don't have a full day. Imagine Gabe coming in and spending an 8-hour day. You don't have that kind of time. You got to go and do what you got to do. So we devise a power hour as a crew. We have very topical. We're going to talk about this topic with some authority. My goal, like I tell everybody in those groups, is I want you to take something from this and implement it. We're not talking theory here. How can you use this today? Like the last thing that me and Gabe talked about at our mastermind was, hey, 2 weeks ago, here's a freebie for our coast to coast is you should go ahead and implement the texting in your Google business profile. It is now linked to where somebody's looking up for pest control in Oregon, and now they can text through the Google business profile and Gabe can get the text on the other side. That's free. That's free. And it also has integration with WhatsApp. And I thought that was a good play for Google, but it'll be a long time before everybody catches up and starts using that function. And a lot of people don't want to talk on the phone; they just want to text. So you'll pick up some nice inbound from that. Obviously, somebody has to monitor that, but there's an example of something you can take home today and use.
So what's the groups like? Is it just one-on-one with you, or is it a whole group of folks?
Two-part. One was I wanted to be close to those 30. That Wyatt only has so much time. I'm going to spend time each month with each one of those players, make sure to know where they're at, what's working, what's not working, and what can we do better. Bring some things of awareness on those one-on-ones, which is great. You have the one-on-one with the guy that started the mastermind. I can't do it forever, but it's one of those things where I want to have a really good core group where I know everybody in that group. I'm going to guard that so we don't just let anybody in the group. Lastly, you need is somebody in that group that's not bringing value. They're only in it for themselves. And usually you can spot those guys pretty quick. When they come in, they're like, hey, I'm not here to give, I'm here to take. That's not going to happen. The second part is when we're in the group and we're doing our 1-hour power hour, we are queuing in on what I know are the key issues for each member. So I can take the program and guide it directly towards, hey, I know this is relevant for Gabe. He's facing this, and we're calling it out on the call. What do you think, Gabe? Or what do you think? Some of these other players aren't in that exact space. And we have franchise owners. We have some of the owners they have multiple pest control companies. Some are playing at $1 million. Some might be playing at that $20 million marker. But here's the thing: like Vistage, we all can help each other, and we all have value. And I could say that the passion like Gabe brings to the table isn't the same passion that somebody that might have been in it for 30 years. So again, you bring that enthusiasm and action to it, and it's nice to sit here and talk about it. But I like to hear, like, what are your thoughts so far, Gabe? Are you getting what I'm saying here? Is this
Yep.
sound right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I would just add, I'd say, yeah, I think that's an accurate description of what those groups are like. They've been very valuable. And it's cool, the diversity. What we've got, I think we've got like an Orkin franchisee in there, a smattering of kind of local people scaling from, I'm probably amongst the smaller and then going up. But I think one of the biggest values that I've got out of it has been the kind of one-on-ones that we've been doing, Wyatt, where you sort of, we walk through our website, and you're not like hey, I'm going to go through and necessarily fix everything, although you offer that. But that has been more like a consultative, hey, here's a bunch of stuff. If I was going to make this website SEO optimized, here's what I do. And that's been like super valuable on my side, really helpful.
I appreciate hearing that, because I do like the one-on-one component. I do get a one-on-one with my Vistage coach chair. But I know that at a certain point, they probably get spread thin. So I know that I'm going to have to diversify too and make sure that we have more coaches. At some point, some of the members will have coaching opportunities. And I think that that's huge. Everybody wants to learn from somebody that's doing it. Part of the mastermind is, hey, I am in the pest control business. This isn't just a coaching gig for me, and yes, there's we started off with kind of talking about the marketing aspect, but the operational stuff is important too. The operational stuff is very important, but also keeping up on, you know, um, look what's going on with AI. I know we were going to talk about that. Gabe had that in some of his questions, but AI is going to reshape a lot of things and cause a lot of anxiety to a lot of people unless they keep up with what's going on. And I think part of that message is, hey, we can have fun with this. How can you use this tool to get better answers and automate? Which that's really where the savings is automation. It'll be a long time before we have robots probably, doing the pest control work. Uh, but having said that, we can use these tools. One of our first sponsors is Cinch. I met these guys at Pest World, and we talked all about what they're doing with workflow automation. How are they using that to dive into the data, whether it's in Field Routes or Gorilla Desk or whatever software you're using? How can you use that to make better decisions when you don't have the Gregs of the world that have all this industry experience to make decisions? That kind of automation is just amazing that is coming online very quickly. And this can help the smaller player compete, because they're going to need that kind of automation to compete. They don't have a full team. They got to become more profitable to onboard more team members. Well, how they do that, they got to apply technology, right? And one of the first early bird mastermind was on AI. And what was funny is I put up a survey and we said, hey, what is AI going to help you do? And no one answered it correctly. It was using AI as a thought partner, which that sounds weird. We're not using it as a thought leader. You're the leader. You're using the technology to enable you to get things done, right?
Yeah,
And
it's funny. It's
easy.
funny you say thought partner. I know I talked to Gabe. We've talked more privately about implementation of AI, and I've seen our implementation of AI like an idea calculator. Like that's how we end up using it, where we're feeding it multiple different ideas and having it combine, add, subtract, and generate a third idea off the two ideas we gave it, and then we go, that's interesting. Well, and then go from there, from there and edit and change what it's coming up with, but not looking at it as a like it's going to sit at the boardroom table and come up with ideas of its own, on its own. It will, but those are universally terrible.
Exactly. And then, AI hallucinates. And then I'm not sure if you're following the DeepSeek stuff, but when OpenAI came out with the product that competed with it, one of the things that was right in the advertisement was it's a more accurate piece of software. And there's actually a percentage to it. I'm like, what do you mean it's more accurate? I thought AI was accurate to begin with. But it just goes on to show you that what is accuracy. You know, if we're not putting out content, like real content about our businesses, generating reviews, writing what's going on in our area, how we're working within that construct, where's AI going to come up with its generative AI? You know, it's going to come up from nowhere, or it's going to come up from something it generated before. So it has to pull from something, and so content is
Yeah.
still king, just like
Yeah.
what we're doing right now. This is content.
So I can't help but think. So if these large language models pull from the whole of the internet history of human writing, right? And if 99% of the pest control companies have, we provide the best service and we're local and we're licensed and insured, and I say, hey, AI, write me a, ad copy for my pest control company without feeding it ideas already, it's going to grab like that garbage content and like, oh, this is what the most likely things are to, words to come after these other words and whatever, and generate like a, yeah, you're locally owned and insured and licensed. You're like, oh, thanks a lot for that one.
Well, it's funny you say that. One of my posts I did, 2 weeks ago or a week ago, was the generative AI pulled my company and information that I know I had AI help me write, but it's still pulled from it. And so one of the things I would share here, I know I shared it with our mastermind, and I learned it from a content marketing agency she sold it. She's an authority on AI, and she comes out and says last year, Google can't tell if this is AI written or not. To prove the point is, why don't you upload the Bible up to the AI content reader, and it'll tell you that it was written by AI. There's an example. There are these content, what are they called? AI, is it AI or not? Aren't perfect. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. That was a big fear in the digital marketing space is, hey, I don't want to write content that's going to be penalized. That's garbage. Garbage. I got plenty of sites that are plenty of AI content. We've been using AI for over 2 years, actually almost 3. Started off with a product called Surfer SEO. And we would take an article that was written, we'd pay somebody to write an article, we'd put it in a Surfer, and it would score it, recalculate it, do all its stuff, and said, hey, this is tasty for Google, upload it. And that's AI, because it AI'd the article. A lot of people use plugins in WordPress to do that, like Yoast. This is a way better one. That's a nice tip for your audience, is use Surfer SEO, pay for a subscription, write your article, and or use it with AI enablement, get it scored well, and then post it up.
Yeah, it's funny because we found that as we played with this over the last couple of years, we had to write more content, and not just content that we were putting out, but content specifically for AI to explain what we're about and what we want to, what the voice needs to be like, and what the tone, and what kinds of words we want to say and what kinds of words we don't want to say, and what our specific company's trying to do, and our strategy and our differentiation, and like volumes of stuff that we had to put together and really think about and write, and then feed it into AI to train it on that, and then say, okay, using only this source material, now generate ad copy or a post or a whatever, and then its performance got much better, because it would pull from what we were specifically trying to do. And I think people don't realize in a lot of ways that it means a little bit more work on your end of like discernment of like who you are and what you're doing and what you want to see on the front end, and then it can sort of do the legwork of, hey, write a press release for this or a post for that or whatever, and it'll be, spot on at that point.
It reminds me of like if you code like a software you're going to use, you're going to put a lot of work in that front end, making sure the code's right, making sure everything runs, all the logic connects. But then it's like, once you do that, you can set it loose to some degree, and it's going to generate, it's going to be so productive.
Okay, so now as a marketer, do you have you have to have, and don't name any names, obviously. Do you run into the problem where you talk to a potential new client or whatever, and you say, okay, well, we're going to market you and we're going to try to position you in your market. What's your differentiation? And they say, we're locally owned. We're great service, best service around. We kill the bugs better than everybody else does. Do you run into that? And if you do, how do you handle that?
Yeah, sometimes it's just being, brutally honest with them, right? I mean, I've had to sit down with customers and say, your logo's off. You can't use that. I know it seems funny or whatever. I'm not going to name these logos, but it just puts out a message that you don't want, right? Like you're hurting the environment, or you're going to blow up the neighbor or something like that. Yeah, people are upset when they get bit by ants or bit by a scorpion, And snakes aren't fun, but let's not make it seem like we're trying to destroy things, right? Let's send out the right message. And so when you have a lot of the same messaging, how do you make a different, like, break through the noise? There's so much noise out there, right? That,
I think we lost
some of that is
Andy
going to
here.
be,
I keep going.
we
You're good.
lost Andy.
You're good. It's
We're
okay.
okay. All right. Sometimes you get a blast through the noise, and there's different ways to do that. And, a really good way is doing exactly what Pest Patrol is doing with having good media. A lot of people don't take the time to go,
Yeah.
hey, show what you're doing out there. Have video of the trucks, show the work that's being done, you know, do some do-it-yourselfer so they figure out the value of what you're really worth. And all of a sudden you show the snakes that are with it, they're not going to spend the money to go buy the trailer, to go do all this work. So now they get to try to fight snakes. It's like, yeah, I'm going to give this up to Gabe. I'm going to give this up to Wyatt. They can handle this. So don't forget that the educational content is so important. Don't feel like you're giving away the farm. It's just showing them what your value is. And a lot of people just want to know that, these guys are doing something, and yeah, it does take some skill to get out there and take care of these problems. Right.
So sorry, I bounced off there for a sec. Internet thing.
It's okay.
I came back to have to fight snakes, so I love that. I can't wait to hear what you guys are saying. So one of the things that occurs to me in this idea, where you go to their websites and it's pretty similar, sort of content and whatnot. I think that is the source of a lot of the fear to share when you go to state association events or networking things or whatever. I think that the folks that tend toward being very isolationist are that way because they don't know themselves enough and their differentiation enough that they can own it. And they know, like, you have no reason to be afraid if you know who you are and your differentiation. There's a lot of work. Everybody can play, right, in the same market. You just got to know who you are and who everybody else is, find your spot. And if you haven't found a spot, you're going to feel pretty uncomfortable. Because if you think it's
I
just,
love what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you just said, because it's the phrase that I heard 3 years ago was, you got to have an abundance mindset. If you're operating in a state of fear, like there's not enough work, or I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to sell this thing, guess what? You're gonna go that way. But if you have this abundance mindset and say, hey, there's plenty of snakes to go ahead and take care of in Tucson, or there's plenty of rats to take care of, and there's plenty of pests. All right, there's plenty of them, and the rate of growth in the pest industry is heavy, right? So there's plenty of work. So once you get past that, the secret sauce is just be you. Be you.
And that's the thing, because abundance mindset is great, and people will say, like, you need to have that, right? And so, okay, what does that mean? So that just means I just go and don't care, like I don't try to beat the competition. I just kind of give up, and we're like, we'll all win, no problem, like, no way. So, like, I think taking a step back from abundance mindset is you've got to do the work internally to know what you are and how you're going to win your customers. And, like, I don't want to win every customer. And I have an abundance mindset, right? There's enough work for everybody, except for I'm going to win the ones that are mine, and I'm going to protect those. I'm going to grab those, and they're like, nope, these marbles are all mine, and I'm taking them home, and you can't have them, right? And I know who I am, but I know I can't play with these other marbles, right? That I'm not for those, right? But yeah, I think too many people just go, well, I saw this motivational thing from Simon Sinek, so I'm just going to be like, yeah, here we go. I'm abundance now. Like,
well, some sales training books, right? I'll just say this: one of the biggest things is your company is only going to grow as much as you, the owner, grows.
Yeah.
Right. Good to great. What got you here won't get you there. So what are you going to do different? And if you don't have a track of learning, or, hey, I want to get to 5 trucks on 1 truck, I'm going to talk to the guy that's got 5 trucks. Or I'll go talk to the guy that's got 10 trucks or 100 trucks, whatever. So just surround yourself. And that's why I like the thing of the peer group is be around people that have already done it. They might know something that you don't know. Take a humility pill and figure out where it is that you're lacking, because we can't be all things to everybody. I'm a pretty good sales guy. I'm a pretty good visionary. I'm bad at a lot of things. And when I'm bad at those things, I find somebody that's 10 times better than me at those things. I say, hey, here you go. You're good at this. I want to pay you to do it. Go do it. Go be you.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
yeah, so one of the short clips that we did with Gabe, it got a ton of replays. Is Gabe dropped the bomb? He goes, they're probably not going to like me for saying this. Did you see that clip, Andy?
Yeah. Oh
This
yeah,
clip
for
was,
sure.
he goes, yeah, I loved it. He goes, there's people that are better than me. I feel the same way. There's people better than me in a lot of different, but they're not you, and they don't care as much as you. So even if you're just building your business, they don't got you, whoever that is that's listening to this podcast. Now go
Yeah.
and build yourself, and there's plenty of people that can help you to do it. Just find them. Go find them.
I literally said something like this to a uh, a plant manager at a food processing plant yesterday, and we were talking about they've got some big national whatever, and he's well, what can you do better? And well, they check these traps, and I was like, do you want me to check that trap better than they check it? Like, do you want me to lift it up and open it up and look into it better than they looked into it? Like, no, that's not what we do. That's not our thing. We're all going to check those traps. That's a table stakes, right?
That's right. That's right.
So now this brings me to my off the wall theory that I had last night. And I want to run this by you because we have somebody in marketing. Gabe's laughing because we do some ridiculous things. Okay, I want to show you a graph that I came up with. It's sort of a conceptual model of the relationship between marketing spend and your company's differentiation. And I think these two things are very tied together in ways people maybe don't appreciate. And maybe they do. I don't know marketing, so maybe you're going to see this and go, yeah, we are. Everybody in marketing already knows that. You're kind of behind the times. So let me let me throw this up here and see what you think. Okay. So for anybody that's only listening, we have what is it? The y-axis that goes up and down. Which one's left and right? X-axis is left and right, and I don't know. So along the left side,
I missed that day in school. No, I think
right.
You're right.
Yeah, we wouldn't be in pest control if we were good at math. So on the left side of imagine the graph that you have a required marketing spend going up on the left side, and then across the bottom, going to the right, is your level of differentiation. And now we have a big inverse bell curve. So it's a big smiley face on the graph. And this was my thought last night that I was working on. If you are less differentiated, and so you're on the way left-hand side of the differentiation graph, you're very similar to everybody else. You have to spend a lot more on your marketing to try to convince people that your brand is important enough to buy, you buy Nike because it has the swoosh on it, right? Like that costs a lot of money for Nike to do that. Are they really better sneakers? I don't know. But as you're less differentiated, you have to spend more. As you become more differentiated, you have to spend less to get the same impact. And then if you become ultra differentiated, way to the right side of the screen now, your marketing spend now is increased because now you're a disruptor and having to teach people about something that's so different, so differentiated that you're educating the market first to say, hey, this is an entirely new idea, and you're going to have resistance that you have to overcome. And now you can probably slide, though, into the middle of the bell curve as people learn about it. The product gets accepted or whatever. I feel like you want to be sort of in that mid-range where you're very differentiated, but you're not so off in left field and completely different that people don't go, it's not a leap to say, yeah, this makes sense and it can work with us. Okay, what's your thoughts on this or questions?
Because I've been all over that smiley face myself, I'd say it's very true.
Okay.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah. I've been in that market disruptor place before. I'm actually in that space right now, not with Swarm, not with Pest Friends, but with other stuff that I'm doing. And you're exactly right. It costs a lot of money to create a brand awareness, if they even know what to look for. So it's almost like you have to tag on to something that they know or a concept they know to trigger ads or trigger whatever you're trying to do, so that now, okay, there might be a little cross over to where somebody might be a potential candidate, and so, yeah, this is a very true graph.
So
And
when I
this
look,
came out of, yeah,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, so this came out of your brain as far as you made this up? Because I haven't seen a graph like this yet.
Okay, yeah, this was just last night as I was thinking about meeting today. I was trying to work through conceptually, like we have a lot of different strategies, right? And so we don't spend a lot on marketing, like our company, because we're niche specialized and highly differentiated in our very specific targeted market. Now, if we were less specialized and differentiated, we would be spending more money to still get the 25 or 30% a year growth. We'd have to spend more because we'd be competing in a little bit less differentiated, more commoditized, more like, yeah, we're kind of doing things pretty similar. Sure, our trucks are a different color, or we'll bring your garbage can up, or those things that aren't really core differentiators, let's say. And then if you're, say, the door knocker type or whatever, where you're very undifferentiated, you're like, we only do exterior, 20 minutes at the house, we spray outside, and then we go to the next house. You're very undifferentiated. Their marketing spend's enormous, right? They got to pay for those door-to-door teams and all kinds of stuff. So your dollar spent, if you spend $1 for a very low differentiated, or you spend $100 for a very low differentiated team, you get, say, 1% growth. You spend $50 for a mid-range differentiated company, you get 1% growth. You spend $1 at a highly differentiated company, you get 1% growth. And those numbers are just made up. I'm just saying, like, to give the idea.
So now we're going to give your listeners something to take home right now.
All right.
It comes up all the time. What should I spend on my marketing? Have you heard that one before? Because that's probably why you busted out with this graph, right?
Well,
How
there's
much
all
should
the
I spend?
operating ratios, right? And the MPMA says 7% of your annual, but that's so generic. It's like it doesn't make
Very generic.
any sense to most, right?
Very generic. So one of the things that we talk about in our mastermind is a word that a lot of people don't know. It's attribution. What's the attribution modeling here? Layman terms is, I spent $1. How much should I get back out of this thing to where it makes sense to keep on putting more money into this thing? Right. And that's the big equation. A lot of business owners are like this. Just say, what do you expect? I'm going to spend X. I need to get this back. If we go and you did a Google search pre-AI, you said, how much should I spend on my marketing budget and pest control? It will tell you exactly how much you should spend. Do you want to slow roll this thing, or do you want to grow it by this percentage or that percentage? And you can kind of come up with the percentages. Incoming AI. Okay, now we're going to walk you through a prompt. Listeners, let's just say you're trying to come up with a marketing budget. First thing you're going to say to AI in your prompt is, I want you to be like a marketing professional in providing this answer. Okay, you're prefacing the model, how you want it to be received. You're going to say, how much should I be spending on my marketing in this place of the world? Specify your geo. And what are people typically doing with these service offerings? And then it'll go ahead and come back with an answer. Well, little you know is now it knows that answer. You've already started that thread. Now you can keep feeding it. Say, well, what if I wanted to grow at this percentage? Or what if you start doing the what ifs and it just keeps on giving you more and more answers? Maybe it's like, hey, what if I wanted to beat the industry by X? What should I be doing? What should my digital marketing spread be in if all I had was $1,000 a month, or I had $10,000 a month? What should the spread be? Answer it like a marketing professional in digital marketing. We just keep guiding it until we get these beautiful answers. Okay, now you come up with a number. Now what? Now you can break it. You just, if you've directed them on the answers that you wanted to see, now you can start formulating, hey, I should put money towards, maybe I should have t-shirts, pens, all the things that are tactile. A lot of people forget about that. But what are the industry trends and where are we going with this? It's a beautiful way to kind of, again, use AI as a thought partner.
Yeah, for sure.
Not the leader. You're the leader. You know your business, but there it is, thought partner. And now you've led it to answers that are at least giving you some guidance. You can come back on top of those answers and go, what am I missing? You can ask AI, what am I missing here?
Yeah, I love the open-ended questions. sometimes. Like sometimes if you try not to direct it, you direct it through a conversation, right? And kind of your prompting advice is spot on, right? Because I think people tend not to ask it questions how it wants to work with them to get the best answer. But after you've done a number, it will sort of reference the tone of the conversation and the thread that you've had, and then be like, ask it something like, well, what other insight would you offer on this topic? Or just like throw it out to it, and it'll be like, well, you haven't really asked this, or here's based on these things that you were saying, this is another idea, and it's you can spend days playing with it. Oh my god!
It's taking that. What's cool is it's taking the guessing out.
Yeah,
it's taking that guessing out. People just shooting off their hip.
Now, when you talk about attribution and how many dollars you get, like from a marketing spend and what the return is there an irresponsible percentage that people want to try to get, where they try to go so fast the wheels come off the bus? Like, I want to grow 1,000% a year, or like just insane, right?
Yeah, that's a funny challenge, right? I mean, it's sometimes the marketing things are volatile, right? I'll give you a real world example. Company, we were doing LSA ads for snow removal. Big storm comes in. They didn't flag off some certain things. They got blown away with 200 LSA ads. Now they're stuck with a very large bill. They're real, because they weren't watching their ad spend. I'm just giving you a real world example. So I know it may not be that crazy in pest control, but as the weather changes, mosquitoes can come out. These different things can come out, and we're looking at the attribution modeling. Yes, it is easy enough to say, okay, yes, there's saturation points, but you can turn it up to a point where you get too much.
Yeah.
And I know the technology is already there to be able to automatically adjust ad spend based on bookings. The technology is there. Gabe's not using it yet, but it exists. Yes, the big guys are using it, where they're like, as soon as we're booked out, pull that ad spend down. I don't need to call the agency. I don't need to call anybody. It automatically will pull down ad spend.
So it'll tie into the back end of your CRM and look at like percentage of available technician time or whatever, and it won't, when that's 0 or a certain percentage, it can back off on the spend automatically. Yeah, interesting.
Or somebody calls in sick, or there's no availability. Different factors can play into that. Yeah, it's
Nobody
pretty amazing.
Calls in sick. Wyatt, everybody comes to work.
No, it never happens.
What are you talking
happens.
about?
Yeah, only every Monday, right? No,
maybe Gabe's technicians, not mine. Oh my god.
No. As far as attribution modeling, yes, I think that hopefully you're not in a position to where, what do I say? Not in a position. It is pretty. It goes up and down, right? If you're watching your numbers, it's a daily event. A lot of it's based off a call count and/or inbound emails or texts. However, you're pulling those leads in. There just needs to be a handling of that and knowing exactly what you spent for that day, where it came from. It's not always going to be consistent. We love to be able to try to predict. Tell me when you got your businesses all in predictive mode, where it runs exactly the way you want. But we can make some educated decisions. Better than running blind, right?
Right. Oh my gosh. This has been a fantastic conversation. I'm glad we didn't embarrass ourselves, I don't think, that much. Gabe?
Not too bad.
Wyatt, is there anything we forgot to ask you? I mean, there's a million things, but anything you were hoping we'd ask you that we didn't?
Here's the thing. I get energized when I talk about this stuff, and then sometimes I talk too much, but just wanted to provide value for the folks that are listening to your podcast, right? If there was one thing that they could take from this and improve their business, even if it was an idea, that would be worth it, right? That's what we're trying to do, is generate value to our listeners. So thank you for having me on. This was a pleasure.
You've been listening to Coast with Andy, can't pronounce his last name, and Gabe Seymour. Join me, Pete Chopin, probably in another 5 years from now when they invite me on again.